After nearly 3 decades covering the Buffalo Bills, this guy knows what he's talking about. Welcome to Sal Speak, the place to be for hard-hitting analysis from Sal Maiorana of the Democrat and Chronicle.
Hello everyone and welcome to Sal Speak at democratandchronicle.com and Facebook Live. I am Sal Maiorana, and today you might recognize this guy, WHAM13 Sports Director Mike Catalana. Mike is in because my comrade in arms, Leo Roth, is on the disabled list for a while. Knucklehead Leo was on the roof on Saturday and fell off the ladder and broke his leg, so he's going to be sidelined for quite a while. So Mike is stepping in today, perhaps down the road a few other times too. But Mike, welcome to Sal Speak.
It is an honor to be here.
It should be.
No, it's fun. And the best to Leo. We hope he is doing better. But he gets a little break from you for a while.
He does.
So that's good.
No Bills games together and no Facebook Live things. So so Mike is joining us today. We're going to talk Bills Saints. Obviously a big game for the Bills, Mike. We know that they come off a horrible loss in New York 2 Thursdays ago, or actually last Thursday. And this is a bounce-back type of situation. And because they didn't beat the Jets, they're 5-3, and now they're in a more tenuous position in the playoff race. Talk about your thoughts on what happened last week, and we'll look forward to this week.
Well, they did it to themselves. And, I mean, that was atrocious, the way they played, and we know that. I say you could make the argument that they have been the most consistent team in the NFL for those 7 weeks. That doesn't mean the best team.
Right.
Consistent. Every week, play hard. Don't turn it over. Force turnovers. Same thing. Win 5, lose 2 close ones. That's the Bills. And then they go to the Meadowlands, and it was just a disaster. So if you're the Bills team now coming into this, you're saying, is that who we are? You have to prove that's not who you are. You have to prove that that was just an atrocious performance in one game, and it doesn't carry over to the rest of the season.
Yeah, and you know what? It's hard to get a gauge because we haven't seen the Bills in this position before. Like you said, they were very consistent the first 7 weeks. I think they got all they could out of those first 7 games. They won 5 of them. Now we have to see how Sean McDermott's team is going to bounce back from their worst performance of the year. It'll be very interesting to see which way it goes. We've seen them come off games where they upset. I think it was still an upset over Oakland, upset over Atlanta. We saw what they had, but this is different. This is the first time they've gotten punched in the mouth, and now they have to respond.
It puts the process to the test, right? Because we know everything has changed when you start winning, and it's changed for them too. Because we've talked about them having an eye on the future all the time. Well, when you trade for Kelvin Benjamin, you're realizing that you are in a position. Look, they lost a division game midway through the year, and technically they are still in the playoffs right now.
Right.
No one, and I would say, put a lie detector on Brandon Beane and Sean McDermott. They weren't thinking they'd be in this spot. Now, they were hoping, I'm sure, that they would play well, but basically a playoff team at this point. So now you got to adjust a little bit, and they need to. But to your point, bouncing back from not just a loss, that was atrocious. Both sides of the ball. They got out-coached. They turned it over. They embarrassed themselves on national TV. So it is a big opportunity. You know, what is he? That's another one of his phrases. It's an opportunity to prove something.
You got to earn your victory or whatever.
Well, you do.
We have a lot of phrases. Something we forgot. I forget what
it is.
But
it's an opportunity, and it really is for them to say, not the same old Bills.
Right. Now, look at New Orleans is a really good team. Again, I did not think the Saints would be, riding a 6-game winning streak, 6-2, leading the NFC South. I really did not expect that to happen. They've turned things around. They've had a bunch of 7-9, 8-8 type of years. Sean Payton was allegedly on the ropes in New Orleans. So they've done a great job of kind of rebuilding. Their defense is playing much better. They got Rob Ryan out of there. Now they actually play defense. And offensively, they've got Drew Brees, and that's really what you need to have. Let's talk first, Mike, about the Saints' defense, because I think that's the biggest surprise. That's why they're probably 6-2.
Well, they even started the year giving up a lot of points in the beginning of the year, and everybody's
thought. They lost their first 2 games.
Yeah, and everybody's thought is it's the same old Saints, right? They're going to score, and that's their best opportunity, and they're going to give up points. But they started to come around. Their secondary plays a physical brand of football, which, again, the Saints haven't done. And I think they go out on the field now expecting to play well defensively. I could argue that their team is sort of built more like what the Bills team is built. And you never would have thought that about the Saints. But as great as Brees is, they've had so many years where it's just Brees and the defense just gives up points and Brees just outscores them. But now the defense has played well. Now, again, stepping up at some point in class, when they have played against the better quarterbacks like Brady, they've given up points. But some of those were earlier in the year, too. They've dominated teams defensively, at least the quarterbacks, and certainly Jameis Winston knocking them out last week. So this is a different Saints team than what we're used to.
Absolutely. Now let's look. The Bills have Kelvin Benjamin. He's going to be in the lineup. They're probably going to get Charles Clay back. It looks like Zay Jones won't play. That's actually an upgrade. I mean, no offense to Zay Jones, but you replace him with Kelvin Benjamin and you get your tight end back. This is going to be a different looking Buffalo offense this week, we hope, as long as Tyrod Taylor can play sharp and get the ball to these guys. Against this Saints defense, they rush the passer pretty well, which has been a big problem for the Bills. The Bills' offensive line really, horrible last week, really haven't been great in pass protection all year. Not going to have Cordy Glenn, it looks like, either. So I think it's going to be really key, Mike. They have to run the ball, which they always have to run the ball. But when they throw the ball, he's got to get time and get these new you can call Clay a new target. Hasn't been here for a month. Get these guys involved early and often, because you're going to have to score points to beat this team.
Yeah, I'd say this. I think now they have to respect the passing game, just by reputation alone. When you're looking at Clay, and if he's healthy the way he's been running this year, and then adding Benjamin, I think it's going to help McCoy. I really do think, because let's face it, most teams could put 11 guys in the box, especially with what they put out there at wide receiver at times. Even look at last week with no Clay, and Zay had done very little. You're talking about Andre Holmes. You're talking about Deontay Thompson. We're not talking about it that level. But now you upgrade that. So when you say that, now if the Saints are looking at playing against this Bills team, I think it can open stuff up for McCoy. And then if McCoy can run the ball, now you hold on to the ball. Who does that keep on the bench?
Absolutely.
Drew Brees, and I think that would help them a lot.
We've already spoken about this. Time of possession is generally not a real important stat, but when you're playing a team with a quarterback like this, you need the ball. You need to keep him off the field. The Bills have shown the ability, Mike, to sustain drives. They have shown that ability. They use that short passing game and they run the ball. They need to do that 4 or 5 times in this game, and end up with points, whether it's 3 or 7. They need to hold the ball and end up finishing those drives in some way. That'll be a big part of the game, I think.
Yeah, I mean, if we would have looked at this game at the beginning of the year, you would have thought one thing about the Saints. But all that goes out the window now. It doesn't matter what you've thought about them in the past. This is who they are now. And who they are now is a team, again, that is efficient. I mean, that plays well. And they have running backs like Kamara. That kid has been fantastic. It's a different team. So, yes, while you aren't going against Drew Brees of maybe even 4 or 5 years ago, where he was, 5,000 plus yards, he can still do that. But you're going against a guy who they won a game this year without him throwing a touchdown pass, and that just doesn't happen. So it's a different kind of game, but at the same time, Drew Brees on the bench is a good thing for the Bills.
Right. What do you expect we're going to see out of Kelvin Benjamin? Now, obviously, they made the trade 2 days before the Jets game, and they made the right call, even though we were in New York and both disappointed that he wasn't going to play. But they made the right call in that situation because, he had no practice time with the Bills, and he hadn't had a bye. Carolina had played 8 straight weeks, and the Bills' bye is already gone, so he wasn't going to get a week off. So I understood why they did it, but it was a kind of a bummer that he wasn't thrown in there. Hey, maybe he could have helped that night. I don't know. But what do you expect to see from Kelvin Benjamin this week? Are we going to get a full boat of him, or what do you think they're going to do?
Well, I think if he would have played last week, it would have been limited, right? But this guy has been playing, and he's a wide receiver who's been around the NFL. We're not talking about a rookie here. So I think they can give him a more than just a regular package of plays. I mean, I think he can play, again, the whole playbook, no, but they don't need that from him. I think he can be effective. Everybody assumes in the red zone, which I think he can, but let's look at other circumstances. When you're the Bills and you're sitting there 3rd and 6, what are you thinking when it's 3rd and 6? Yep. I'm thinking they're in trouble on 3rd and 6. Right. Again, so he is a guy who can get those plays for you. You can throw it up. Will Tyrod do that?
My next
Will
point
Tyrod throw it up to a guy? There's a difference between Tyrod throwing late to a guy who's covered, because Tyrod threw it late, and Tyrod looking and going, he's covered, but I trust him to go up and get the ball. And that's got to be communicated to Tyrod too. Like, we're going to take some chances there. Like, it has been drilled into the guy. And let's give him that, right? If you're going to play the way Tyrod plays, it is important to not turn the ball over.
Right.
But there are times you got to take some chances.
It's going to be, I mean, Tyrod addressed this a little bit on Wednesday. The question was asked, this guy, Kelvin Benjamin, has had a reputation of being able to go up and win the 50-50 balls. Those are the ones where he's not covered, but he's so physical. He's 6'5", 240 pounds. He is generally going to be bigger than anybody he's covering. He's not often on a linebacker.
Right.
So most DBs aren't his size. In the past, Cam Newton, who is a risk taker, obviously, he would throw it up and let Kelvin Benjamin make a play on the ball. If it got picked off, so be it. They play defense and get the ball back. The Bills have to, you're right, they have to drill it into Tyrod. Look, we don't want you to turn it over, but you're going to have to get this guy involved and let him make a play for you.
Yeah.
That'll be key. If Tyrod doesn't do this, the Kelvin Benjamin acquisition is not going to look quite as good because he is not a guy who's going to run deep and beat people long, or he's not a great guy getting separation. We've read this about the scouting report. He's not going to go beat guys and be wide open. He's going to be covered, but he'll win the battles.
Yeah, and I think there's another place he wins battles. If, again, you throw the ball correctly, he can... We haven't seen a lot of back shoulder throws from Tyrod.
No, we haven't.
But he is not just tall, but he is big and he's a physical player.
He can box the DB out.
And you've seen him do it on some of those throws that down, I can just picture one. I was looking at highlights of him. Left side, down in the corner, about the 12-yard line, and Cam Newton throws it, and he basically boxes out the defender. It's a back shoulder throw, and he's big. You're not getting around him, and he can make that play. And he's got, I'll use one of those phrases, a large catch and a catch radius.
Catch radius, that's
he
right.
does, but he has, I'm watching him pregame, and you were too. You're watching him pregame at the Jets, and you watched him at practice this week. I mean, he has long arms.
He does.
And he goes up and he snags the ball. And look, Sammy Watkins could get the ball, and Sammy could make some plays, but he's not the size of this guy. No. And he's not that. And Sammy's obviously a faster player.
Sammy was like 210. I think he's like 6'3", 210.
210. This guy is
30 pounds heavier.
Every bit 6'5". I think he could be he's not quite a stretch 4 in the NBA, but he is a big guy. He is, and he's got those long arms, and I think that can help you in the passing game. Right. Again, they're going to need him, but it also maybe opens up for other people. Clay, Jordan Matthews, again, he's still playing banged up, obviously with the hand and all, but I think you can get Matthews involved. Get him back in the slot. That's where he belongs.
Well, I think one of the keys is going to be where do they line up Jordan Matthews this week? They're going to have Kelvin Benjamin on the outside. My thought, Zay Jones is probably not going to play. My thought is you're going to move Deontay Thompson to the outside and put Jordan Matthews, like you said, where he played in Philly, in the slot. That's what he is a slot receiver. The problem the Bills had the first 7 weeks, every receiver they had was technically a slot receiver. They didn't have the burner on the outside. They still don't have a burner on the outside, but they've got guys now who can play the outside.
Right.
Jordan Matthews is better suited inside. It'll be real interesting to see how he operates.
Well, Jordan Matthews was that most effectively when he played for the Eagles, and on occasion they would put him on the outside. It just wasn't where he was effective. But you also have Charles Clay running down the seam. Again, all these things, we know. You'll hear these phrases about route combinations and all, but they are all set up to try to open up somebody else. If you got Charles Clay running down the middle, you've got Jordan Matthews going across on the inside. Maybe you end up with single coverage on Kelvin Benjamin. You try to get those. The key then is, does your quarterback recognize it, and can he make the right decision?
I'll give Tyrod this. I've been one of his harshest critics for many good reasons. I think he's playing okay this year, Mike. Yeah. I really do. He's only got the 2 picks, and I know that's his thing. He doesn't throw the interception.
Yeah.
But I think he has taken a few more chances with the ball. I think he's fitting in to this Rick Dennison offense a little better than he did Greg Roman and Anthony Lynn. I've liked what I've seen. Now, is he the long-term guy? I don't know. We're not even going to worry about that. We're talking about right now. But have you been maybe mildly surprised by the way Taylor has played this year?
I say all the time, what we have seen is a more effective version of Tyrod. Right. And last year, Tyrod made plays with his feet. He did not turn it over. Well, the team didn't make the playoffs because they had a lousy defense last year. And I remember thinking, if Tyrod had a better defense, doesn't make him a great quarterback. They could sneak in the playoffs. And I feel the same way this year. And I think they have gotten a slightly better version of him. And I actually thought Thursday night he threw the ball well.
Yeah,
he
wasn't
didn't
the
turn
problem.
it over. It wasn't the problem. I'm going to put some blame on Rick Dennison. I thought he called a poor game, and I wanted to see them make an adjustment. I know teams come in with the game plan and all, but they were getting so much pressure up. They just couldn't figure out a way. Get Tyrod on the move more. Get him opened up. For a brief time, they tried to hurry up a little bit when they were driving, and they threw it to O'Leary. Right. And again, that play maybe defined the whole thing. But if you're pinning this on Tyrod, you're pinning it on the wrong person last week.
That wasn't the problem at all.
It was a big problem on the line.
We're going to get to Drew Brees and their offense after we get a couple questions answered here. I'll just take a few. We can answer them. Jeff Short says, taking care of business. We talked about that right at the top. They need to take care of business this week. Well, he says that means playing ball better than a high school team. Bills need to start getting serious and show us the win. Last week was disgraceful. Absolutely was. It's going to be very interesting. Like I said, will they be able to bounce back, put that one right in the trash can where it belongs, and move ahead? Because they are still, right now, if the season ended today, the dumbest statement anybody can make, right. But they would be in the playoffs right now. They got to find a way to stay there, Mike.
Now, and what I would say to Jeff, you're right, because last week they were that team. But that's not what they've shown you for the first 7 weeks of the year. So in other years, even in the Rex years, it was like this or like this, right? Whatever they would do. They would have a great week and then a terrible week. No, that wasn't them. They were the same team. And that was a team, I have to say, if you're a Bills fan, you should have been proud of. Effort, consistency, all those things. And did they throw it all out the window in one game? Unfortunately, it was on national TV, so that's what the country saw. But if you're a Bills fan watching them every week, you're scared to death that this is the beginning of the downside. But I will say, and you know this, you're up there. This is not the past Bills. Doesn't mean this team's going to be great and make the playoffs. But the whole organization, everything they do is different than they've done in the past. There is reason to believe it's not the beginning of a collapse.
Larry Hamilton says it's not the O-line, it's no wide receivers and 8 and 9 in the box. That's why they can't run the ball. Well, look, every team they've played, just about every team, has gone 8 men in the box, daring the Bills to throw the ball because they know the Bills have a remedial passing game. That's going to change, we think, with these additions. But to date, they really have not been a good pass. I think they're 29th or 30th right now in passing. We know the limitations with the passing game. McCoy is the prime weapon. Other teams have taken it away. He's had 3 of the worst games of his career. I think he had a 9-yard game, a 21, and a 25. So teams have done a good job. Now, look, the offensive line, though, has not played as well as it had the first 2 years that they were together. They've been together pretty much for 2 years. That has been a problem. I know there's 8 men in the box. Guess what? Last year they faced some 8 men in the box too, and they found a way to get it done.
McCoy says it all the time. Well, everybody knew we were going to run last year, and we still ran the ball. I don't understand the Ryan Groy thing.
Me neither.
You'll hear it during the game. He's eligible. He's eligible. Yeah, because they put him out there on the outside. But you signed this guy. Again, my thought was because it was the Rams, right? They signed him an offer sheet, and then they matched it. So they like him. He's an interior guy. He was a center. You just don't like him at guard at all. You don't think he deserves an opportunity there. You've got him on the field. You've obviously kept him. And I wonder at some point if they would give him more of an opportunity, but Vlad Dukas.
I mean, John Miller clearly is off their radar.
Yeah.
They've benched him. Again, he's not their guy. They did bring Dukas in. Well, I'm not sure Bean was even there yet when they brought Dukas in. But Dukas is their guy that they brought in.
Yeah.
I don't see much of a difference. I'm not paying attention too closely to those guys, but I don't see much of a difference between Dukas and Miller. But to your point, you've got Ryan Groy on a 2-year, $5 million deal. Make Dukas your swing interior guy and play Ryan Groy. Now, I think the one issue, Mike, is I'm not sure if Dukas can play center. And maybe they're worried that if they put Groy in and if he were to get hurt, they have no true backup center just in case Wood were to get. I don't know I don't know the reasoning, but I'm ready to see Ryan Groy and see if we can do something different.
What would help them a little bit. But to the point about them not having a passing game, you're right. And as we spoke about a little while ago, the threat of a passing game should be increased with Calvin Benjamin and Charles Clay back. That doesn't mean they're going to be great, Clay coming off an injury and Benjamin in his first game. But when you look at what they put on the field against the Jets compared to this, I think that's a pretty big upgrade.
The last question here right now, Ken Capuano says, this is the very reason I did not want them bringing RG3 Part 2. Here we are once again spinning their wheels talking about the same things. Now, I'm assuming is he talking about Taylor there as an RG3 clone?
I don't think Tyrod Taylor is anything like so RG3.
I may be misunderstanding the question, but I mean, they brought Taylor back. Maybe he's saying he didn't want to bring Taylor back. Look, Tyrod's not been the problem. It's plain and simple to me. He has not been the issue. I can understand, and I've been one of these people. I think you have too. I'm not real crazy about him as your long-term guy. I want them to draft a quarterback next year, and I want them to go up and get one of the top guys.
Yeah.
Because we've seen lately, these guys who get drafted high have turned out pretty good. There was a time where a lot of those guys were busts, right?
Yeah.
There has been. Lately, that's not the case.
And I'm going to remind everybody about something. So the draft's going to come up, and these quarterbacks have been up and down, and you'll see what ends up happening. Now, we know what's going to happen is when the draft comes around, those guys are going to go early. Think about it last year. Deshaun Watson wins the national championship. The guy does everything you want. Great kid, all these things, big arm, athlete, the whole thing. And people are like, it goes up and down. They're like, I don't know if he's worthy of the number one pick.
It's all that silly pre-draft stuff.
Well, it goes way up and way down. You think if they redrafted now, how high is he going to go? And so I think teams are going to look at that a little bit and go, identify the guy you want and go get him. We don't know about Mitchell Trubisky. Yeah. All I know is he's a talented kid, and with the right coaching, look at Jared Goff, can they make it work? But, with Tyrod, again, I say the same thing. It's like, I read these national stories. And we've gotten a little bit here, but I read these national stories of people, the fans in Buffalo hate Tyrod. I don't think that's the case. If I'm mistaken here, I think most people are just frustrated because I think like we do, that Tyrod is who he is.
He's at his ceiling.
And there isn't this big jump. Now, second half of this year, especially if they get Zay Jones back too, again, with Benjamin, Clay, Jordan Matthews, Tyrod, or LaShawn McCoy, and Zay Jones, you can't complain about weapons because that's not bad at all. That is certainly a competent group of weapons that you can put on the field. Maybe we'll see a little bit more out of them.
Now, one thing we know for sure is Tyrod Taylor and Drew Brees are about the same height. Tyrod's actually got him by an inch, but they certainly aren't the same player with the same pedigree. This guy, Drew Brees, who would have thought when he came out of Purdue, and John Butler drafted him in San Diego, God bless his soul. He saw something in this 6-foot quarterback from Purdue. They let him go after 5 years, and the Saints pick him up.
When they had gotten Rivers, right?
Rivers.
Yeah.
Since he's been in New Orleans, he has been one of the greatest quarterbacks, and it's unbelievable to say it, of all time.
Oh, he is.
You look at the numbers, the production. He does have the Super Bowl ring to his credit. The guy has been incredible. What an amazing career for a guy of his stature.
And you remember, so he's available, and it was Nick Saban, right, in the Dolphins that wanted to sign him?
Yes, that's right.
And the doctors didn't give him the okay.
That
so
was
the
Dolphins,
Culpepper,
right? Culpepper.
And they end up signing Dante Culpepper.
How'd that work out?
And Saban, of course, then it failed in Miami, and then he was gone, which, says sometimes. Now, again, you're talking about a 6-foot guy with a bad shoulder.
Right.
So it wasn't like every team in the league was going after the guy, but he has been phenomenal. Tyrod, and he should. Tyrod looks at him from in the pocket and says, what can I learn? What he hasn't really been able to learn is to get to those windows. The difference is Drew Brees, at his height, finds those windows, and he lets the ball go. Tyrod is just delayed.
You watch him in the pocket, and it's like Brady, because Brady is not a mobile guy at all.
Right.
And Marino used to be very good at this. All it takes is a subtle step here, a subtle step there, and you've got the window. Tyrod, I think when he's in the pocket, Mike, when he wants to stay in the pocket, he's stationary.
Yeah.
When he starts scrambling around, it's a whole different ballgame. But I think if the play develops and he's supposed to be in the pocket delivering, it just seems to me that he waits that fraction too long, and then it becomes a scramble situation. You know what I mean? And rather than just make that subtle move, and maybe the passing lane opens up.
The 6'1" quarterback is the exception, not the rule. This guy is a massive exception. Yeah. We're not talking about Doug Flutie here. We're talking about a guy who is Flutie was effective, but we're talking about a 5,000-yard a year guy who's going to the Hall of Fame and been an MVP of the league. So that's who you're talking about here. There aren't a lot of guys that height that can do it. So to Tyrod, again, how do you be effective in that way? You've got to find those windows when you're not standing over top and throwing the ball. And to this point, he has not been that guy.
Yeah. So what do you think? I picked the Saints. We just did DeTulio and Moran and made our picks, and I think you differ from me. But look, the reason I'm picking the Saints is I just think they're a better team. They're a talented roster, top to bottom. They're red hot. They've won 6 in a row. And I think they realize that Buffalo they're not going to overlook the Bills coming into Orchard Park. And I just think the quarterback is so good and their defense is better than it's ever been, at least in recent years, for Sean Payton. I think it's a little bit too much for the Bills to handle, but I did couch it by saying I absolutely could see this being a trap game, quote unquote. I hate that word, but you could see the Saints coming in on the road playing an AFC team. They're already in first place in their division. You could possibly, see a scenario where there's a letdown. I still think the Saints are going to win, but I know what your reasoning is to pick the Bills.
I agree with everything you said about the Saints, and I think they are a better team, and I think they have the better quarterback, and they've won 6 in a row. I think the 6 in a row works against them a little bit. Again, they've been playing division games. Now you're coming to Buffalo. Again, they're going to look at tape, and the Bills have looked good. Outside of last week, you're looking at that tape, and it has been a very productive team. But I think the 6 wins in a row, going to a non-conference team on the road against a Bills team that should be thoroughly embarrassed with how they played in their last game, raises it up a little bit. I think the little edge that McDermott has knowing the Saints personnel. Again, they've with Kamara, they're playing a little bit differently this year, so that changes a little bit. But hey, he's had good success against the NFC West so far. He's got 2 wins and should have had a third one against his old team. If it is a little bit of a difference and they're at home, 40 degrees and windy. Hey, look, if you're playing down on the Dome, it's a different story.
Right.
But it's 40 degrees and windy. Close game. Close game either way. I just think I'm going to go with the more desperate and embarrassed team, and I think the Bills by a field goal.
Okay. All right. He is Mike Catalana. I am Sal Maiorana. I want to thank everybody for being here today. You can have the podcast version if you missed the show and you're telling I am everywhere. So iTunes for that, SoundCloud, it'll be on there. Sal Speak. Read my column in the paper. Watch Mike on Channel 13. He's everywhere too. He calls me the media, you know why. He's just as much one. Believe me, he's everywhere.
I know.
You are.
We keep busy.
We should do stuff more together.
I know. He's just 2 old guys.
Just kill 2 birds with one stone.
We're combined 75 years old.
I know. How many years in the Bills? I've got almost 30 now full time.
It will be
You're about the same, right?
Well, let's see. My first game covering the Bills was Thurman's first game.
Okay, so 88.
88.
All right.
My first game. I'll be at Channel 13 30 years in December.
I'm 30.
28 years covering really 30 years covering the Bills, or 29, I guess.
I'm 31 years here and covered the team for 28 years.
Then how are we only combined? I guess it might have the years a little off.
I guess. All right, whatever. All right, anyways, Mike, I'm Sal. Thanks for being here. Have a great week and enjoy the Bills game on Sunday afternoon.